Today's content is going to be vitally important, an easy breakdown of attachment theory and attachment styles. This is Joshua Ward with ZchangedMe, and we'll talk about it right after the intro. See you in a bit. Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Joshua Ward, and I'm going to be talking about attachment theories and attachment styles. This is vitally important because to understand this can help you make better decisions for your life and for your future. And it transitions pretty much everything in my channel. We have relationships, we have single dad, which I am a single dad, there's personal growth, and this is attachment theory. Attachment theory really transitions to every part of those things why it's so fundamental. And you'll see me reiterate attachment styles in other videos over and over again, but this is the video you need to understand. All right, so what is attachment theory and what are attachment styles? Now, there's plenty of information out there to make you confused, because when I first started looking at this, I was completely lost. But there have been a few resources and a few places that really gave me a good foundation. Now, for you book lovers, it's going to be Amir Levine. Amir Levine had a great book to break down fundamentally, so please check that out if you love to read books. And there's been 3 people on YouTube that really helped me also. There's going to be Forrest, Hanson, Clark, Kegley, and also Thias Gibson. Now, Thias Gibson is a mother effing problem. I'm going to have these guys in the description below so you can be able to look at what they have, because I believe that each person has a way to relate to an individual, and if I can't relate with you, maybe one of these guys can, because I really think this information is beneficial even if it's not even coming from me. Now, let's break down attachment theory and attachment styles. First, the umbrella term, attachment theory. Now, attachment theory has to do with a child in their relationship with their caregiver, and I really like how Forrest Hanson called it. It has to do with trust, all right, and how that relationship teaches that child to believe in themselves or trust themselves, and teaches them how to trust other people. And depending on that teaching or that mindset that was built in that child will depict on how that person does other relationships down the road. So understanding how you attach with that caregiver can give you some good insight on who you are and where you are now, and so you can figure out ways to tweak it. Thias Gibson quotes Gabor Mate, which Gabor Mate said is a lack of or an active that can cause trauma. And most people think about the active that causes trauma, but not many people believe that a lack of something like neglect can produce trauma down the road and cause problems in future relationships. So there's 4 major attachment styles or categories. The first one is secure. Now, secure individuals have a positive view on themselves, or they trust themselves, and they have a positive view of other people. They know how to trust other people. And that's usually produced by a lot of different factors, but usually the caregiver teaches the child in a secure environment how to set up boundaries, how to understand needs, how to use emotions not as an enemy or neglect them, but teaches them how they can give insight on and what's going on with them, so they can produce positive results on the back end, which by a caregiver giving that helps the child know what kind of people to trust and be secure with. Now, the next style is going to be anxious preoccupied. Now, anxious preoccupied can also be called ambivalent attachment. But so when I looked at different terms, they had a bunch of different things that were switching back and forth, like anxious preoccupied and ambivalent. So this will help give you some clarity on which ones they switch out, what's most commonly used. But if you see this term, you understand that ambivalent is talking about anxious preoccupied. So what happens with those individuals, they lack trust in themselves, but they have a high belief in other people. And that could be caused by helicopter parents. They do everything for them, so when they're not around, they're like, I can't trust myself because you've always done it. And so they always look for people to fill that role, to tell them what to do and kind of be that person that teaches them and helps them soothe their emotions and everything in that regard. Also, inconsistent parents could do this too, like ones that could be really engaged and supportive, but then disinterested and lack empathy. What happens is kids are little narcissists, and they believe that, shoot, everything that happens around them is their fault. But if you don't teach them certain things, sometimes they will put that in their head that they really believe everything's their fault. So when the caregiver is engaged and not, the child believes, okay, I did something wrong. I need to do something to get it back. And so it makes this anxious things where they're always acting to try to do something to get him back in their good graces, to get that attention again. So that's going to be an anxious, preoccupied, negative view of themselves, but a positive view of other people. Next on the agenda will be dismissive avoidant. Now, dismissive avoidant, they have a positive view of themselves, or they trust themselves, but they have a negative view in other people, or they have a difficult time trusting other people. Usually in this situation, it's based off of neglect. What happens is by the child having a neglect, but having everything else they need, like they have safe and shelter, everything else, but emotionally was neglected. What happens is the children learn how to self-soothe. And over time, they realize, like, okay, I got to trust myself to get my emotions and things done. I can't trust other people. Then you have fearful avoidant, also called anxious avoidant, also called disorganized attachment. That can be confusing, right? So anxious avoidant can be very similar to anxious preoccupied. And so that can cause some confusion. So a lot of people do not use that term as much, but you'll still see it so you can know for completeness sake. But then you also have disorganized, which is just more of an outdated term, but you'll still see that too in some older literature. But the more widely used is going to be fearful avoidant. Now, fearful avoidant have a negative trust or belief in themselves, and they have a negative belief and trust in somebody else. The main factor you see with most fearful avoidant is that they feared a caregiver in some form or fashion. That could be an alcoholic parent or abusive parent. And so when they saw the parent, which should have been a sign of comfort, which in some aspect they kind of did, they saw fear too. So what happens is when they get in relationships, they start to see the fear come back, because now the close relationship they have was with fear when it was a child. Now when they get in adult relationships, friendships, anything, they start to act kind of erratic because they don't know what to do, because they're fearful of what they want. Because we're all wired for some type of connection, and so they'll drive for a connection, but because of that connection, they're actually afraid of it too. So it's pretty wild. So they have a negative view of themselves and also have a negative view of other people. Now, what are some characteristics or some examples of how this would be run out in adult relationships? But let's start off with secure. Now, secure individuals, now you gotta understand they're not perfect. And they say that 50 to 60% of the population is secure. I don't know if I believe that. But they say 50 to 60% of the population is secure. But secure people still move into some avoidant tendencies, and they still move into some anxious tendencies. But the ability, what they have is the ability to regulate themselves at a fairly decent time frame. So here are some of the characteristics. They appreciate their own self-worth and also able to make intimate relationships. They're happy to rely on support of their partner. They maintain emotional balance. They seek healthy ways to manage conflict. They're okay with being alone. They're okay with being in groups. These people are just socially adept. But next you have anxious preoccupied. Now, anxious preoccupied, some of the characteristics would be for that is kind of clingy. That's the perspective you're looking at. They're clingy, and they just always are activating to make sure a relationship stays. And so they're always doing something to make things stay. What happens in their mind, they stay a lot of times in their emotions too long. And by staying in their emotions too long, those emotions kind of become into reality. Compared to a secure person, which would get in their emotions, understand where it comes from, but these facts, people who are anxious will make the emotions and make up these fake rules and then run with them like they really happened. But here are some things you see in their relationships. Being in an intimate relationship would take over their life. They want to be close to somebody, but the problem is they don't trust that partner because they couldn't really trust their caregiver when they grew up to be consistent. They find it difficult to make boundaries and viewing space as a threat. They get anxious and jealous when their partner's away, may use guilt and other things to actually manipulate the person to get back. And they need constant reassurance and a lot of attention from their partner. All right, On to the next one, dismissive avoidant. Now, dismissive avoidant, usually if anything goes wrong in situations, they'll try to create space or avoid situations, which gets with the dismissive avoidant. But here are some of their characteristics. They're independent people, content for caring for themselves and don't need for others. They're uncomfortable with their emotions. Partners often accuse them of being distant and closed off and rigid and tolerant. In return, they accuse the partner for being too needy. They're prone to minimizing and disregarding the partner's feelings, keeping secrets, engaging in affairs, even ending relationships in order to gain their sense of freedom. And they may prefer fleeting casual relationships to long-term intimate ones, seeking out partners who are equally independent and ones who keep their emotions distant. On to the next one, which is going to be fearful avoidant. And some characteristics for those are: they probably find intimate relationships confusing, unsettling, and often swinging from emotional extremes of love and hate for a partner. They may be insensitive towards their partner, selfish, controlling, and untrusting, which can lead to explosive and even abusive behavior. They may exhibit antisocial and negative behavior patterns, abuse to alcohol, drugs, prone to aggressive or violence. Others may despair at their refusal to take responsibility for their actions. While they crave security and safety of a meaningful, intimate relationship, they feel unworthy of love and terrified of getting hurt again. So what are some potential solutions? And first thing is, get a therapist. Therapist is a third person perspective that can help you unlock some of that unresolved trauma and be able to understand it so you can stop preventing bad actions in the future. Another one is understanding nonverbal communication skills from a perspective of what nonverbal communication are you giving to other people to make them feel a certain type of way, but also interpreting nonverbal communication skills to make sure that you can start to read situations carefully and be able to adjust accordingly. Next will be is having a high emotional intelligence. And so in high emotional intelligence is not just understanding people's feelings, but understanding your own and helping people navigate their own at the same time. This is great will that I saw when I went to therapy, and it really just broke down emotions fundamentally, because sometimes people can be in emotions long time, like anxious, preoccupied, and just make up stories in their mind. But being in emotions long enough to sit down and understand what you're feeling, then use your logical mind to go in and start making actionable items to get out of the situation that you're in. So having an emotional intelligence yourself and also helping other people is going to be huge also. Now some final thoughts. Understanding attachment styles is huge, but also understanding that you don't have to stay there. There's multiple things you can do to improve yourself to move you to more secure and a more healthier relationships. Also, another perspective is that a lot of times you can look about it as like a spectrum. Like there's dismissive avoidant to fearful to anxious preoccupied, but a lot of times people are not like 100% anxious preoccupied. And you may have like a dismissive leading fearful or a fearful leading anxious. And so understanding that it's not cut and dry because everybody is so complex and you have different experiences, understand that also. And lastly, you don't know if you might be 100%, but my definition of perfection is trying to improve yourself as much as you can for yourself and the people you care about. That's the best perfection you can be. So again, I appreciate you being here on my channel, and please put a comment if you want to hear anything else, if you want to understand something else, want to deeper dive in one of the styles, please let me know. Like and subscribe if you thought this was beneficial. Let me know if there's things I can probably do to improve this, but I'm looking forward to going deeper dive on these attachment styles and looking forward to be able to help you in your lives. Have a great day, love somebody, be nice to somebody, and if you have kids, give them a hug. And see you next time.